Some things in life are difficult to understand. In fact, sometimes people go through life doing what seems to be right, and they encounter deep suffering. And we cry out and we ask, why? This week we're going to take a look at a signpost that says, what you believe about God's goodness defines your relationship with Him. When we experience suffering, we can draw closer to God, or we can turn away and go out on our own. This week we're going to take a look at the question, why does God allow pain and suffering? Before becoming a Christian, C.S. Lewis was a hardcore atheist. He looked at the pain and the suffering in the world and could not reconcile that with a loving and a good God. In fact, he thought the suffering evil counted against God's existence. That is until Lewis started to think more deeply about the nature of good and the nature of evil, and what clues those are about the way the world really is. In Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis put it this way: my argument against God was that the universe seems so cruel and unjust. But how had I gotten this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing this universe with when I called it unjust? We cry out at the injustice in the world because we believe in justice. We protest evil in the world because we believe in good. We call things wrong because we believe there's such a thing as right. And yet there can only be such a thing as right if there's a God who has created the world to operate in a certain way. So amazingly, Lewis pointed out that the fact that we believe in good and evil and right and wrong is a clue about the universe really being a just place. But let's face it, when we go through suffering, especially in a deep way, we don't always feel like the universe is just.
Not to punish anybody, but there are an extraordinary number of people whom I want to kill. I think it would be a good thing to make everybody come before a properly appointed board, just as he might come before the income tax commissioners, and say every 5 years or every 7 years, just put him there and say, sir or madam, now will you be kind enough to justify your existence? If you're not producing as much as you consume, or perhaps a little more, then clearly we cannot use the big organization of our society for the purpose of keeping you alive, because your life does not benefit us and it can't be of very much use to yourself.
That if I were a mother of a suffering child, I would be the first to want, a deeply suffering child, I would be the first to want to put a pillow over its face.
Dr. Peter introduced another guest there, but that's a pretty horrifying thing to say, that you would put a pillow over.
Of course I would, if it was a child I really loved who is in agony. I think any good mother would.
If Janet and Jeffrey were able to make a decision about life, they would opt for suicide. There have been times when I thought of doing something myself, but the saying, walk in another man's moccasins, unless you've been there, don't judge.
Well, Ruth asking for the right to be merciful with her children. I mean, that's what you're asking for. Is that right? Now, you may agree with that, or you may not. And let me ask the audience, before we move on, by a show of hands, if you think it is the moral thing for parents to have the right, when you reach a fatal and
extreme,
irreversible course of a disease, to affirmatively end that child's life, raise your hand.
Oh my God.
All right, and if you say, no, listen, that is murder, it is ending someone's life, raise your hand. Okay. So it looks like about 90-10 support what you want to do.
Meet Miss Texas Wheelchair. Is that right? This is Mariah, and you won the crown, what, how many weeks ago?
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
Yes,
you have
sir.
cerebral palsy?
Yes, sir.
How do you feel about what we're talking about, what's going on, what you're seeing?
For me in my life, I've seen that God takes what society may think of as weaknesses and turns them into our greatest strengths. And something that's very important to me is to promote inclusion. And I've had inclusion throughout my life. I've been very blessed to be mainstreamed in school, and then also adaptive sports is very important to me. And so I've gotten to do track, baseball, basketball, gymnastics, dance, a whole bunch of different sports, and through that I've met some of my best friends. And even more than just learning sports, it's given me pride, courage, joy, and just these amazing friendships, and it's really given me a place in the community.
Anybody who thinks they have a tough life, man, the joy pouring out of you is fantastic. Fantastic.
In The Problem of Pain, C.S. Lewis said this: God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. What is unique about the Christian solution to the problem of pain is that it tells of a God who enters into our suffering. It's not a God who stands by coolly and observes, but a God who enters into our own pain. Hebrews 4:15 says this: For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin. We may not know why we go through periods of suffering, but we do know that the God of the universe even allowed his son, his only son, Jesus Christ, to be consigned to one of the most brutal and painful deaths imaginable. In fact, we do know that we worship and follow a loving God who's compassionate and understands our suffering. When we go through pain, we cry out for justice. But Jesus said that justice is only found in him. When we hurt, we want healing. But Jesus makes it clear that healing is only found in a relationship with him. As Dave Dravecki pointed out, when we go through pain, we have a choice. Which path will we go down? Jesus gives us an option, but he desires that even amidst the hurt that we go through, that we turn and we trust him, and he promises that he will begin the process of restoring us, and we will be with him for eternity. Will you trust him?